Hello 10th graders, this is Ms. Sherwin with my first instructional video of the week. This week we are going to be learning all about argument and persuasion terms. So today is kind of laying the basis of our foundation of knowledge, and then we'll be building upon that this week with different assignments and then a quiz, of course, at the very end of the week. So starting it off, we need to create shared information about terms, about what an argument is. So if you can look on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see an image that I created that's basically a pyramid of an argument. I think this image is really going to help you understand the breakdown of an argument, and so we're actually going to stop at the top and go down to the bottom here. So at the top we have our claim. And so the claim definition, which you can find on the left, is the writer's position on a problem or an issue. So what are they arguing about? Are they for something or are they against something? And so my example at the bottom is that if I were to create an argument today, I could talk about motorcycle helmets, and I would believe that my claim for my argument is that motorcycle helmets should be required by law in all 50 states. After I have my claim, I move down to the second layer from the top of our pyramid, which is reasons. And so with reasons, reasons are statements to support the claim. They're basically considered subpoints. And the reason why I make a pyramid is because we've got one claim at the top, but we don't just have one reason after that. Typically in an argument, you have at least 2 to 3 reasons. It's kind of like the foundation of an argument. Of course, there could be many, many more, but most of the arguments that we look at will contain at least 2, if not 3 reasons or subpoints. So with my claim earlier, I said that motorcycle helmets should be required by law in all 50 states. One reason that I may provide is that motorcycle helmets save, typo there, it should say save lives. And that could be just one reason that I would put down for there. After that, our pyramid grows once again, because rather than just 2 to 3 reasons, we're actually building on that with different types of evidence, okay? And this is going to be many different types of evidence. Evidence are facts, research, or anecdotes to prove the reason is valid, or to prove that the reason and the claim are both valid. And so that's when I start pulling in the research that I did to support my overall argument. Usually when we create an argument, we look into research first, and then we form reasons and whatnot. So we're going to look at it that way. One piece of evidence that I may support with my previous reason that motorcycle helmets save lives, doing a quick Google search, I found that helmets saved an estimated 1,859 lives in 2016. Okay, so that's a statistic that I can pull. I can pull the source and figure out if it's a credible source as well, and that would make up one piece of evidence, one piece of many pieces of evidence that I could use in my overall argument about why we should require motorcycle helmets in all 50 states. And then finally, at the bottom here, we have our counter-argument. And so our counter-argument, it's just a part of the pyramid. It is, I would say, essential for a really good argument. It is a brief argument that negates objections to the claim that the other side is likely to raise. So what this means is that if I am arguing for motorcycle helmets, I could be mentioning the counter argument that somebody else believes that motorcycle helmets should not be required because of some reason, and then it's my job to prove them wrong. So my example below is that some people may argue that forcing riders to wear a helmet goes against individual rights. However, and then that's where I would put in more reasons, more evidence, and whatnot. Okay, so me mentioning what the other person in the room might say is me mentioning the counter argument. And that essentially makes up what an argument is with our lovely argument pyramid. This is probably a good stopping point if you need to go back to understand what a claim is, reasons, evidence, or counter argument just a little bit better. Feel free to do so before continuing on. Next, after we understand what an argument is, it's our job then to evaluate an argument. And so it's basically as we start reading arguments in class, and one of your homework assignments this week is to look at an argument and identify, the claim, the reason, and whatnot, and then also to evaluate it. So that is essentially looking at, is it a well thought out argument, or is it missing some things, and could it be a little bit better? So first off, we always check the claim. So what is the writer trying to convince you to believe or do? Okay, consider whether the reasons given actually support the claim. So with my motorcycle argument, do I provide reasons to support the overall idea of what I'm arguing, or do I sprinkle in some things that really don't belong there or may not seem very essential? Next, our job is to examine the evidence, okay? So you're going to be looking at, does this information come from a trustworthy source? And also, is there enough of it to make the case? So as I mentioned before, with my statistic that I pulled from Google, it would be your job then to dig into the evidence and figure out, am I pulling this from a credible source online? So we always say in class that maybe Wikipedia isn't the best place to get all of your information from. It might be a good starting spot, but not a great spot to have all of your facts from. So that could be something to consider as well. Thirdly, we have a look for logic. So you're going to read through an argument and basically just check to see, does it make sense? Is the author of the argument making hasty generalizations or conclusions drawn from too little evidence? So a hasty generalization might be that if I argued if one person who I know got injured or died from a motorcycle accident because they were not wearing a helmet, then all people could be injured or die from incidents like that. That would be a hasty generalization, okay? I'm drawing from too little evidence while there's probably plenty of facts out there that go against what I just said. And then finally, I ask you to consider the counterargument. So has the writer adequately dealt with likely objections? So are they mentioning a counterargument that actually exists rather than just coming up with something to mention for the sake of an argument? This is also probably a good stopping point in case you need a breather before continuing on, but we are in the home stretch here. Otherwise, what I would like you to do right now, we have part of an article from an English teacher in Brooklyn, New York, Jesse Scasia, and his argument about the use of cell phones in public schools. What I would like you to do right now is to pause this video and read through the paragraph that is on the screen. All right, guys, what we have next here, we are going to identify each part of the argument with the paragraph that you just read. So for starters, we need to identify the claim. So what is Jesse Scasia arguing in this whole article? And I've got it highlighted there in yellow. Scasia is arguing that cell phones don't belong in the classroom. Okay, plain and simple as that. He's against cell phones in the classroom. The next step is to figure out the reasons why he believes this. In this little excerpt here, there are actually 2 reasons, and I'll ask you to maybe pause here and figure out what those reasons are before continuing on. Two reasons found here are highlighted in orange. The first one is that a student with a cell phone is an uninterested student. So Scasia believes that if a student has a cell phone in class, they are not maybe interested enough in the material that's being presented in the classroom. And he also believes, in the middle of this page here, that, quote unquote, the onus for failure should be placed on distractions in the classroom, specifically cell phones. So he's basically saying that failure in the classroom is because of the distractions that cell phones create in the classroom. So reason number 1, creates an uninterested student. Reason number 2, leads to failure in the classroom. Third job here is to look at the evidence. Now, because this is an excerpt of a much longer argument, there's only actually one spot of clear evidence in the overall argument here. So I would think about our pyramid. So we've got our claim at the top, we've got our reason, we've actually got 2 listed on here. Take a moment and figure out where is a good piece of evidence used, either a fact, a statistic, or an anecdote used to support Scassia's reason. All right, I've got that highlighted in pink. It reads, when I was teaching, all too often I turned around from writing something on the blackboard to find students text messaging or otherwise playing on their phones. Come to the end of the term, a handful of students would fail the class and far too many would drop out of school. All right, this is what we call anecdotal evidence. When a writer calls back on experiences of their own life to support their reason. Now, considering that Scassia only uses anecdotal evidence in his article, in his argument, we would say that that's probably not a very good indication that he has a good argument, okay? If he was pulling in statistics or facts or even other anecdotes from other teachers beside himself, then that would create a stronger argument overall. Just something to consider. And then finally, we need to look for the counterargument. I bet you could figure this out with process of elimination of what's not highlighted here in the paragraph, but just take a moment and figure out what is the counterargument that Scassia is mentioning in this article. All right, everybody, this is our last slide. Highlighted at the bottom in green, it reads, parents think of cell phones as a connection to their children in an emergency. And so the rest of Scassia talking here, he mentions that, some people believe that cell phones are okay in the classroom because parents can reach their children in case of an emergency. But he also continues on and goes against the counter-argument and says, basically proves that person wrong by saying, I wonder what the last situation was that genuinely called for an immediate phone call to a child. So he's pondering a question here, maybe not necessarily the strongest way to go against a counter argument, but it definitely is a possibility. So overall here, thank you for going through and listening to my 12 minutes of persuasive terms and argumentative terms. This presentation will definitely help you in your next step of looking at an argument about electric cars, and then of course your quiz at the end of the week. Feel free to view this again if you need to, look up additional resources online, or send me a Schoology message, or look at our Q&A discussion board if you have questions for the whole class. Take care of yourselves.